What is up, YouTube? Nerds in the Nosebleeds here, back with another video. Today's video is going to be on the Juan Soto potential trade that everyone thinks is holding up and clogging up the trade deadline right now, waiting to see where the premier 23-year-old outfield superstar is going to go. Now, I want to start off with saying, before I give some predictions for this trade, I've been seeing a lot of people going on Twitter talking about their team giving up the whole farm system for Juan Soto and questioning if giving up their future is right for a guy that's got 2.5 years of control left. And I got to say, just to put it in perspective, Juan Soto only has 2.5 years, but that's 3 potential World Series rings you could get out of him. He is 23 years old, so you might potentially then be able to lock him up long term. But even if your team doesn't spend big, you could go for 2 World Series rings with potentially the best young hitter in the game and then trade him off and still get a pretty good haul back for 1 year of Juan Soto from another team. He's a career 292 hitter, a career 427 on base percentage. He gets on base like crazy. That's why he's called the 23-year-old reincarnation of Ted Williams, because that's literally who he's most comparable to in his career so far. 21.1 WAR so far in his career. He's top 10 in MVP the last 3 years, and the year before those 3 years, he was a rookie, which his rookie year, he also went to the World Series, played in the playoffs, was in the middle of a Nationals lineup that did some big damage with Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner, even an aging Howie Kendrick. They went on to win that World Series, and then he's also won a home run derby as of just a couple weeks ago. So the dude can perform under pressure on the big stage. He has a World Series ring and a home run derby trophy, and he's still really young. Yes, the glove is not amazing, but the hitting tools are all there. He gets on base, he hits for power, he hits for average, he can do it all. You're going to want him in your lineup. It's amazing. You don't get a 23-year-old superstar like this to build a team around to come up on the trade block very often. And to also put it in perspective, I was just looking at some top 10 prospect lists from a couple of the teams I'm going to mention here following up these predictions. And just looking at the Cardinals, they're going to be in my list. Spoiler alert. This is their top 10 list from a couple years ago. I'm not sure. I think this was 2017 or maybe 2015. I don't remember. But number 1, Stephen Piscotty, outfielder. Then they had Marco Gonzalez, Alex Reyes, Jack Flaherty, and yes, Jack Flaherty's a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong. He's a good starting pitcher. Rob Kaminsky, Charlie Tilson, Tim Cooney, Sam Tuvalalala, blah, 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 Luke Weaver, and Carson Kelly, the catcher. Don't get me wrong, there's some good guys in there that played in the show and have some good service time, but really, Jack Flaherty's the only one there of any real relevance that you would be sad about maybe trading away in a trade. But then looking at like the Yankees, I believe this was 2015 or 2015, I think. Their top 10 list was Gleyber Torres. Everyone was huge on him. Jackson Frazier, Blake Rutherford, Aaron Judge. Don't get me wrong, MVP superstar right there. That's one. Jorge Mateo, James Caprilarian, Justice Sheffield, Chance Adams, Dustin Fowler, Miguel Andujar, Albert Abreu, and Tyler Wade. That was their top 12. So Judge would be the only one you'd really be sad about losing out on there. And then even looking at the Dodgers, I think this year for the Dodgers was 2013, so this is a ways back. But Yasiel Puig, who doesn't even play in the league anymore. Corey Seager, no doubt, he's really, really good. He's a top player in the game. Jock Peterson, who's been a platoon most of his career. Definitely a good solid bat, but nothing that you're going to really be mad if you traded for Juan Soto. Zach Lee, Ryu, Onelki Garcia, Matt Magel, Chris Reed, Chris Withrow, and Ross Stripling. That's their top 10. So you'd be sad about losing Corey Seager, but that's about it. So my point is, looking at these top 10 list of, a team's top 10 prospects at that time, even if you traded away all 10 of them, looking at those teams, you would maybe lose one guy that you'd be sad about in the future. But if you switched any of those guys out for Juan Soto, you're not going to be that mad come the end of the day. So I think no matter what, if your team can get a run and get Juan Soto, even for 2.5 years or even a year and a half, the next 2 seasons, and then trade him away and get some capital back, I think you should 100% go for it, and you'd be really, really stoked if your team somehow landed Juan Soto. I'm going to work my way up from the bottom for these predictions. I'm going to give some honorable mentions. I think the Giants, the Guardians, the Rays, and the Rangers could be some sleepers. I think the Rays and the Guardians both have the prospects to do this, and they could use a big bat, but they're one of the teams that I'd be thinking would maybe use him for a year or two and then try to trade him again and get some of their farm system, some of their prospects back into their system. The Giants could use a superstar, frankly. They could use some more youth. They kind of been doing the veteran thing for a while. That's kind of how they got 3 of their World Series rings. in recent years. So I think they could use maybe some youth. I don't know if they would extend him or not, but they got to have some money because they don't have very many big contracts on the books. I think that would be cool to see. And then the Rangers just been going crazy spending money. They have a lot of pitching prospects, a lot of prospects in general. So maybe they try to sneak out and get Juan Soto maybe for a year or two and flip him again if they're not ready. But 2.5 years, they might be ready for contention. I don't know if they could pay Seager, Semien, and Soto, but they might be able to. So they have a lot of young pitching prospects. So if they keep enough of them in that trade, then they could still build a good staff cheaply. So those are kind of my honorable mentions. But at number 6, I'm going to go ahead with the Seattle Mariners. Now, as an Angels fan, this would suck to see, but they have a lot of good prospects. They have, I'm going to butcher his name, Noelvi Marte. He's a shortstop. They have Harry Ford. He's a catcher. He's 19 years old. And then they have Kelenic, Kyle Lewis, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, a lot of good young players, Taylor Trammell. They have a lot of good young players. Marte, though, shortstop would probably be the main part of the package. He's the 19th ranked prospect in baseball. He's 20-year-old shortstop. He's a stud. I feel like in this, Julio Rodriguez would have to be untouchable because he's looking like he might be a Juan Soto-esque player. So if that happens, maybe he's untouchable. Logan Gilbert is their kind of rising young ace, so maybe him as well. But George Kirby, one of Kelenic or Kyle Lewis. Kelenic's stock might have fallen a little bit now that he's come up a couple times and not really produced, but he's still crushing it in AAA right now. So he might still have, some kind of value, but maybe more prospects for this. This is one thing I got to say, though. The Nationals did say they want major league ready players that are young and have a lot of service time and prospects. So I think the Mariners have a good combination of both. I just don't know how much of that they'll want to move because they look really good set up for the future. Not saying that they can't use Soto. Like I said, this whole thing, if you can do it and make it happen, you should do it and get Soto. But I don't know, maybe they feel like they're ready enough right now and they don't need Soto. But Mariners I have at 6. They're my 6th pick to get Soto. Number 5, I got the Padres. And from reports I've been seeing lately, maybe these guys should move up a little bit. But they have a lot of good prospects as well. CJ Abrams, I don't think he's considered a prospect anymore. But he's a 21-year-old shortstop. And he was their number 1 prospect for a while. He looks like a stud. He came up and didn't have a great little stretch there with the Padres. But he's still young. I think he's got a lot of time to grow. And he looks like he has all the tools ready to go. They have Robert Hassel, who's an outfielder. A lot of people have been talking about him in this potential trade. He's the 23rd ranked prospect in baseball. And Luis Campusano, he's a catcher as well. He's 23, a little older than some of these other prospects, but not old in the grand scheme of baseball. And he's the 54th ranked prospect. So they have a good prospect package they could set up to send to the Nats. They still have Mackenzie Gore, who's young. Trent Grisham would be a young major league ready player right now that doesn't have a lot of service time. They could swap over to the Nats. Outfielder would be good for them. Padres lining up Tatis and Soto would give them a young core that'd be really good for years to come if they could potentially extend Soto. I know they got the Machado deal. They just gave Tatis a bunch of money, but they could have the 3-headed monster. Some teams do that, so that would be insane for the Padres. My number 4 guess is actually a team that I had at 2. I dropped them down to 4 now, and that's the Yankees. They just traded for Andrew Benintendi, so I feel like their chances have to go down a little bit. Maybe that was their second plan and their plan B, and they switched to that after they didn't land Soto and someone else is looking like the favorite now. So the Yankees, they have Anthony Volpe, who's a shortstop. He's the number 8 ranked prospect in baseball, so he's a stud. They also have shortstop Oswald Peraza. He's 22. He's a 38th ranked prospect. And then Jason Dominguez, who's an outfielder. He's only 19 years old. He looks like a stud. He's the dude that hit the absolute nuke in the Future Star game. He has like all 5 tools. He's I believe he's a switch hitter. He's everything you can want in an outfielder. And he's the 39th ranked prospect in all of baseball. So they have all the prospects in the world to do it, but I know they have a kind of a hole at shortstop that they're hoping to fill with Peraza or Volpe, so maybe they don't want to trade one of those guys, and I believe the Nationals said they would want Volpe. I think that's the number 1 guy they were trying to get from anybody that they could potentially get in any trade. Gleyber Torres is still a younger guy that they could potentially get that's a major league ready, not as much service time, ready for them to get over and maybe swap him in at second for the Nats. I moved them down to 4th because of the Benintendi trade. Like I said, makes me feel like maybe they're not going after another outfielder now, but I don't think it takes them out of the running. That's why I'm only moving them to 4. I had them at 2 because I felt very strongly that he was going to go to the Yankees, but this makes me question it a little bit. So I had to kind of, change on the fly. I had to come back in and add this in for you guys because I completely forgot to talk about it. I was tied up on the prospects and the Yankees signing Benintendi, which kind of came out of nowhere. Not nowhere. We thought he was going there. Then the vaccine thing happened. We didn't think he was going there because of the chance of playing the Blue Jays in the playoffs and the rest of the season. So all that stuff happened. Then Benny goes there. So now I was like, okay, now I'm kind of confused. But the thing I wanted to mention is Aaron Judge. Yes, the outfield of Judge, Stanton, Gallo, who looks like he might be on the move, and now Benintendi, Hicks, Dominguez coming up, all this outfield depth that they potentially have there in New York. Soto would be an outfielder, but Stanton can go to DH permanently. You know, I know they have Carpenter there hitting in the DH slot sometimes, but he could go there permanently, I guess. And Soto might be, maybe they trade for him, get 2.5 years, and they lock him up long term because he's a lot younger than Judge. So maybe they're thinking they're going to let Judge go in the offseason, which is what it kind of sounds like is going to happen. Let him go to free agency. They keep Soto for the next 2 years after this season, and then they lock up Soto long term. It gives you a younger player who's just as good, if not maybe better, in some people's eyes. He's not better this year, obviously, but he's a lot younger, and he's had some really good years, already won a World Series. So the debate is there, but either way, it's a younger version that's just as good of a hitter, so maybe they get that. They don't get the defense that they get with Judge. They're not completely comparable, but I'm just saying it's another young superstar outfielder. Maybe they're going to slide over to the Soto and go that direction and let Judge walk, which has been kind of a talk that's happened. So maybe the Yankees still are a good front runner for Soto in this sweepstakes. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see at the end of the trade deadline. They might still keep their 2 spot in my mind, or maybe the 3 spot, and not move down to 4. But the Benintendi thing definitely makes me rethink kind of how I think this direction is going to go. But now my third ranked team is the New York Mets, staying in New York. I think they just have all the prospects. I don't know what young MLB service time people they would maybe throw in there. That's maybe where I kind of wasn't sure, but I know they're willing to spend money with their new owner, Steve Cohen, so he would sign Soto to a huge extension if he could. If not, I believe they're going to try to get Ohtani from us. But Francisco Alvarez is a catcher. He's the number 2 ranked prospect in all of baseball. Brett Beatty's a third base. He can also play the corner outfielder positions, but he's a third baseman. He's the number 20th ranked prospect in baseball. And then Ronnie Maruccio, he's a shortstop. He's the 52nd ranked prospect. So they have 3 guys around the top 50, with Alvarez being the second best, and Beatty looks like an absolute stud. So this might be one of the best prospect packages they could get is from the New York Mets, so that's why I have to have them at 3. I just think there's 2 teams that could be ahead of them now, and number 2 is going to be the Dodgers. I know what you're thinking. The Dodgers have traded for Scherzer and Trey Turner. They signed Bauer. I know that's a whole thing, but they signed him to a huge contract. They signed Freddie Freeman in free agency. They're going out and signing all these big deals. They just got Mookie Betts a couple years ago. It's probably like 4 years ago now, but it feels like a couple of years ago. They're not afraid to spend money big time, and they've traded away prospects and still have one of the best farm systems in baseball. So they have Diego Cartaya. I believe I might be butchering that last name, but he's number 13th ranked prospect in baseball. Bobby Miller, he's a pitcher. He's the number 26th, and then Michael Busch, he's an infielder. He's ranked 42nd. So they still, and actually they have Andy Pages as well. He's an outfielder. He's the 47th ranked prospect in all of baseball. So they have 4 guys inside the top 47, and 2 of them are around the top 25. So they have a lot of good, and that's a pitcher, an outfielder, an infielder, and a catcher. So that's a lot of different versatility, a lot of really good prospects. They have Tony Gonsolin, Julio Urias, Bellinger possibly, if the Nats would even want that. If they have anything they see they can fix there, Gavin Lux, and they have a lot of prospects. So I think the Dodgers could easily do this. I just have one team above them because I feel like their package might be even a little bit better than the Dodgers. And to me, that's the St. Louis Cardinals. I feel like the Cardinals have to be the favorite. I've been seeing their name a lot. I think they just have the best combo of prospects and young players. If you look at their young players that have come up recently, they have Dylan Carlson, Nolan Gorman. Either one of those 2 would be a huge centerpiece. Tyler O'Neill possibly if needed, maybe Donovan, I don't know. They have a bunch of people that are up in the show that are young and look like studs. And then looking at their prospects, Jordan Walker might be the most intriguing prospect out of all of these. He's ranked 7th. Overall, and I know Volpe was 8th, and I know Alvarez from the Mets, the catcher, he was ranked 2nd. So there's some guys up here that are high up in the rankings. Cartaya from the Dodgers, the catcher, he was ranked 13th. So he might not be, the highest ranked, prospect, but Jordan Walker at third base looks like an absolute stud. He might be the best one out of all the prospects I've looked at. Mason Wynn, he's the guy you saw in the Futures game throw the ball over 100 miles per hour from shortstop to first. He looks like an absolute stud as well. He's in the top 100 prospects. And then Matthew Liberatore, he's 45th, I believe, a left-handed pitcher. And all these guys are 22, 20, 20, so they're all young. Combination of prospects and young players that the Cardinals have that are major league ready, I think it makes the most sense to me. I think the Cardinals could use another big bat with Arenado and Goldschmidt and give them, a push up into division supremacy and maybe a big deep run in the playoffs, a good shot at the World Series. I think they could use pitching, but maybe they eat up some of that Patrick Corbin deal. I know he's not great. Maybe just give him some more depth. He'd probably be pushed out to the bullpen, but it doesn't really matter. That doesn't really matter as much. I know some of these teams might end up doing that no matter what, just to get Soto. But whatever you got to do to get him, I think it's going to be, now that the Yankees have signed Benintendi, I honestly think it's going to be a race between the Cards and the Dodgers and possibly the Padres. But I think all these teams have great stacks of prospects to give up. And like I said, I believe if you can give up prospects that you have no idea how they're actually going to pan out and get somebody that's proven in the show, he's one of the top hitters. He's done it in a World Series with all the pressure. He's done it in a home run derby with all the pressure. I know a home run derby is just fun, but I'm just saying he could be on the big stage in front of thousands and thousands of people under the ton of pressure, and he just delivers. He's amazing in the box and can hit like nobody else. I think you go and do it. That gives you a shot at 3 rings, and some of these prospects might not be up for another year or 2. Some of these prospects might not pan out. Like I said in the beginning, showing you guys the top 10 prospects from a couple teams. Maybe one of those guys pans out in the top 10 prospects from that whole team, and we're looking at 3 or 4 prospects. So there's potential that none of them pan out. I don't think that'll happen. I think there's a couple of guys in here that are definitely going to pan out, but you never know. So you take the sure thing. You don't worry about the prospects. And that's kind of it for the video. That's my predictions for where I think he's going to end up. I think Soto will be in St. Louis or in LA now that we've seen stuff, possibly San Diego. But you never can count out either New York team. And like I said, the Mariners, the Rangers, the Giants, the Guardians, the Rays, they're kind of all sleepers. I didn't talk a bunch about them, but they definitely have some kind of packages they can put together and potential to sneak away with Soto. So I think the Nationals are going to do whatever they can to get the most for him. I believe he'll be traded before the deadline. I don't think it's going to be an off-season thing because the 2.5 years sounds a lot better than, the next 2 seasons. So I think Soto will be dealt. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you guys think that Soto is going to a team I didn't list, or if he's not going to the Cards or the Dodgers. Just let me know what you think down below. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.